So now it's exercise time. So if we just go back to where we were, sort of like our table of contents, you can just go to the functions exercise and get started. And again, it's the same. It's all in script.js file or in your JS bin, and you're going to go through and put some functionality in there. So, and we'll have about 30, let's see, what time is it, 2? Yeah, we'll have about 40 minutes for these. Is a little bit longer. So let's go with 40 minutes.
There's a question in the chat room here.
Oh. So Pete asks, how does Animal Maker know when it is passed an array? It is passed an array and has to iterate through it versus just grabbing the first value. So we're actually explicitly, where are my slides? We're actually explicitly looping through it. So Animal Maker, the function itself, knows nothing of the array. What we're actually doing is we're just looping. And here, actually, this slide up here makes it a little more clear. So we're just looping. So this for loop is actually what's doing the looping part. And inside of the for loop, we're actually passing the animal name. We can see it here. This is where we're calling Animal Maker. And we're not calling Animal Maker with the entire array. We're actually calling it with one value in the array. So animal names at I. So the first one, the 0th index would be sheep. So it's saying Animal Makers. And then you could replace that right here, like with sheep, for example. So that's how it knows. Does that answer your questions? Cool. And it's supposed to be a little bit of a difficult challenge. It's really combining all the different things that we've gone over today. Functions, arrays, objects, loops, and just really tying everything together. So let's see. Let me find my solutions. Here we go.
Is there a solution file somewhere?
There is a solution slide. I'll tell you how to get to the solutions later. I don't like to give it away ahead of time because, because then you'll cheat. And that would be too easy. So the first thing is for questions 1 and 2 combined. We have this animal test user. We for the first one though, let me just type out the first version. It's just a. So the first one, we could say var animal test equals a function. And this function takes a username as a parameter. And then it just returns an object. So see how I expanded that object? So there's an object there, and then I just expand it out. And in there, I'm going to write some properties. And the property was, I believe, so it was just username and then username. So this is a little bit confusing. So we have username on one side of the colon, and then we have username on the other side of the colon. And username's a parameter. Which one actually is the one that's going to be turned into the username? So if I called this and I said var like my cow equals animal test, and then I passed what's a good cow name, like Bessie or something? Bessie? I don't know how to spell Bessie, but that's as good as it's going to get. So which one wins? So is the property name Bessie, or is that value going to be Bessie? Absolutely. So the value in this case is going to be Bessie. Here's the parameter. When we have the property name on the left side of the colon like that, that's going to be assumed as a string in object literal notation. And it won't ever be evaluated as an expression. So before I was talking about how we could use bracket notation to put in an expression for the property name. We can't do that with object literal notation. So keep that in mind that this will always be assumed as a string. If it makes you feel better, you can just put it in quotes to remind yourself that, okay, this one on the left is the string, and the value on the right is the one that's going to be my parameter, which once I pass the string Bessie, then that parameter has the value Bessie. And if we just wanted to, like, console.log my cow.username, that is going to print out Bessie, right? Thumbs on that? Thumbs on that? How many people have finished that one? Awesome, good job, guys. So that's step one. And then the second part of the question was, if the arguments are, let's see, if the length of the arguments is greater than 1, put the other arguments as a property, or as an array in, as an array, I'm sorry, let me reword that, as a property with the value of an array of those arguments. Are you guys following? I kind of lost myself in that explanation. So other args is going to be an array of the arguments passed in if there's more than one argument. And so there's a few ways you could have done that. So one way you could do it, so here we have args, which is going to be the length of the, I think like a better one would be like arg length, just to be like a little more clear on what args is. So we say arg length. So that's going to be the length of the arg, it's going to be a number. And then we have
Arg length in the if statement? No?
Oh, thank you. Someone's paying attention. Awesome. So if the length is greater than 1, then we're going to enter into this if block. And the simplest way, I'm using the concepts that we actually covered in the class, is just to loop through that arguments array and push them, except for the first one. So that's why our I there, our var I, is going to start at 1 instead of 0. And so you loop through and you push each argument into an array, and that would create an array. The other one is what I mentioned briefly earlier. The array.prototype.slice.call will also turn it into an array. But we can stick to this one because it's more straightforward. The other one goes into prototype land, which is not somewhere I really want to go right now. Any questions about this method?
I didn't see that slice.call in the documentation, so call is a function of slice, which is a method.
Call is a method on all functions. And if we have time tomorrow, I have some slides that go over call and apply if we have time. So fingers crossed. Yeah, so call and apply are two function methods that are commonly used, and they're really useful for functional programming when you're doing some generic things with functions. But we'll see if we'll get there tomorrow.
So they're part of any built-in method or
yeah, exactly. So like how push is a native array method, call and apply are native function methods.
Okay.
And that goes back to how functions are also objects, they also have methods, etc. Cool. Did you have a question? No?
Something.
Okay. Cool. Sweet. Dun, dun, dun. Let's see. Let's put on a word wrap here so we can see everything. So here's a more complicated version of our first animal user. So it takes a username, it takes a species, it takes a tagline, it takes noises. So starting to sound familiar from our other exercises. So what we're doing here is we're creating a constructor function for our animal model. And so here we have an object, and we're just storing it in a variable, which you could do. And again, you can just put quotes around this to sort of, so you know which one's which. There you go. And we're just initializing these values. And here at the very end, we are returning that object. And another way that you could do this is simply by just returning the object literal instead of the variable name. But they do the exact same thing. There's no difference there. Any questions on this one? No? Cool. So here's just an example of how you would use it. So we're passing in a series of arguments, and then you can console log sheep, and you'll see that sheep is going to be, hopefully, oops, is going to be an object. So here's sheep, our sheep, and we see it has, its name is Cloud, it's a sheep. Tagline is you can count on me, and it has a noises array of the noises, and it has an empty friends array. Oops, I lost where I was. Questions on that? Cool. So I'm gonna try to go through this quick so that we can keep going. So here's our function add friend. It takes an animal and it takes a friend, which you want to add to the friend. So if you wanted to simply push, if you wanted to push the whole object, it would be animal.friends.push, and you would push that friend, and so that would be the entire object. So at this point, if we looked at it, we could do this. Oops. Keep trying to open the console up in Sublime. It's not liking that. Do we have sheep here still? No. Okay. So let's do this. Uh-oh. Dun, dun, dun. Okay. Okay. So we have sheep, and now I think we'll just add Cloud's going to be his own friend, so we're going to give sheep a sheep. And so now we can see that sheep has itself as a friend. And you can see there. Cool. And then if you wanted to save space, you didn't want to pass around whole objects, you could just, or you didn't want to save whole objects, you can just keep the username there, or their user ID or something like that. And do it that way. And in that case, it would just save the name. So here's some other ones. Cow, sheep, and llamas. So here's one way that we can just create our farm by just using our array literal notation, putting those variables in there that represent our animal objects, like that.
So those were already created in the animal creator.
Yeah, up here you can kind of see. Here's llama, here's cow. And here's how you can add matches. So okay, let's see. So we're looping through farm. We could actually use, which might be better, is we could just use a regular for loop with semicolons rather than this for in loop, because again, if we had some properties on our array, it might do some silly things that we aren't expecting. But you can also do that as well. So we have farm, and then inside farm we have animal. For each animal in the farm, dot matches. So the matches is creating a matches property there and initializing it to an empty array. So this function just gives our each animal in our farm the ability to have a match. Whereas before they can only have friends. Like maybe you can only have you only get matches if you're a premium user, So you can only have friends, and then if you want to do the dating matching part or something, then you can upgrade them and give them matches. Just don't tell them that they could just put this function in their console, they wouldn't have to pay anything, and that business model would be perfect. So, and then here's a function that gives matches, and it looks like it is just going to loop through all those animals in the farm, and it's going to push the first friend of each animal as a match. And you could get fancy with this and like make it a random match, or perhaps in future iterations of your data structure you'll have some ratings based on a test that they take, and then they'll find in the farm other animals that have a close rating to them and then match that way.
So in this one, animal, is it like cow, sheep, llama? Is that what it's not like going to the username and matching username.
Right.
It's saying sheep to sheep and cow to cow.
Yeah, exactly. So it's looping through, and again, this would be better as a for loop with semicolons. It will work this way, but in general, you're going to use those for loop with semicolons when you're looping through an array.
I used for each.
Oh yeah, or you can use for each. We'll talk about that more tomorrow. Cool, and this is how you would use give matches. You just pass the whole farm to it, and then you can check it by just inspecting your farm and seeing if there's other animals in your matches. I think I said that all without breathing. Any questions? No?
I have a question.
Sure.
Line 75 and line 76.
Mm-hmm.
So farm on line 75 is an array.
Mm-hmm. Same thing. What is this?
And then that variable animal is some indexer into the array. What is it actually doing on line 76 where it says farm bracket?
So animal is actually going to be the I. So you could maybe it would look better if it was an I. But in general, you're going to want to use the for loop with semicolons here, where you say for of our I equal, less than array.length. That one would be better. This will work, but since farm is an array, and in a lot of MVCs, especially or at least Backbone, which is the one I use mostly, is that your collection is actually going to be an object. It's not usually an array. It's an object that contains an array. So that's probably where the solution is kind of basing that on. Cool. All right, so if we don't have any questions on that, we'll just move on to nesting, and that's going to be our last topic for today.
Can you just speak to the assignment or the exercise file where you have under each exercise number you have like a code area, and then you have some items commented out? Is that like a hint for what you're trying to do?
Let's see. This here?
Yeah.
So that's saying that this console log will print out this.
And what about on like 3 below then?
Yeah, so we're console logging sheep, and so
okay.
sheep should be an object that looks like this.
So that's what the log would
Yeah.
for that piece.
So it's just going to give you some guidance into what you should be expecting your solution to look like.
All right. Thanks.
Can you go down to that number 8?
Mm-hmm.
Then so that matches Zenny. So that Zenny is a sheep, and that's why Zenny is in the matches.
It really depends on how you implement your matches, your give matches function. We don't do species discrimination on eFarmony, so it's usually just the first one. So the solution does the first one. So actually, in the solution, it would be moo, because that would be the first index. And this one, maybe it's always the last one. Just depends on how you implement it. There's no robust
So we're like
algorithm.
matching one thing to another. We're just saying the first or the last or whatever.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
So someone from your friends list will be one of your match.
Got it,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
Right on.
And if you want to build that out into something like more interesting, you're welcome to do that.
Got it.
Yeah.
Like matching sheep to sheep or?
Yeah.